Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Gottschall. I am the Township Manager here for Lower Paxton Township. And in typical fashion, I'm going to give a brief summary of tonight's agenda before we begin, particularly for the benefit of those watching at home this evening on their televisions. Tonight, the board will entertain a public presentation by Ryan Hostetter and Deb Hoover on the Red Top Road Bridge Replacement Project. They will share information, and the township will make available the opportunity for public comment through our website afterward. Next, the Public Safety Director, Mr. Koshiba, will take part in a discussion by the board on the subject of 2020 Trick or Treat. After this, the board will entertain a presentation of the 2020 adjusted budget in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And before taking action on improvement guarantees, the board will consider action on Resolution 20-16, approving the DEP planning module for the Shane and Diane Devon preliminary final subdivision plan. And at this point, the board members are seated and prepared to conduct business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gottschall. We will call this meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors to order. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise, and Supervisor Lindsay will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to announce that prior to this meeting and following the meeting, the supervisors have met and will meet in executive session to receive information from the township manager and staff. With that, is there anyone present who would like to make public comment on an item not on the agenda this evening? Anybody want to make comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will go directly then, since this is a workshop meeting, to a presentation on the Red Top Road Bridge Replacement Project.
Chairman Henry,
yes.
If I may, I believe we had one comment under public section.
We do, however,
okay.
that will be read into the record at the time we discuss that
My
item.
apologies. Thank you.
Since the
Sorry.
item is on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Please don't let me forget it at that point. I'm so excited about the bridge project. See that? Good evening. Ryan, you should have a green light come on. And
good now?
There we go.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me here this evening. I want to kind of provide a little intro. This is a public meeting for the Red Top Road Bridge Project, which in typical fashion is held with displays setting around and inviting the public to come in, and we have people manning exhibits and answering questions, and soliciting feedback. The real intent of this is just that, to provide the public with an overview of the project, to identify some of the constraints of the project, some of the impacts from the project, and solicit feedback. This is part of the environmental clearance for our project because we have federal money in the project for both design, engineering, and construction. That's part of the process. Deb Hoover's here tonight. I'm going to do most of the presentation, but she's certainly here. She works with KCI, who is managing the project on behalf of Penndot. So what we have tonight is essentially our exhibits that we would typically have, or handouts that we'd have at a public meeting, that I'm going to kind of walk through with you, entertain your questions, provide answers hopefully to any of them, and then we will leave this and provide notification through email or flyers or some form of notification to the residents that they can go on to the website and provide feedback via email to the township or to myself. We can work those details out with Brad following the meeting. And then we will log those questions and document the process as part of the environmental clearance document for the project. So the first slides are frequently asked questions, and I don't know who's running the slides. If you
They're
could
very small.
Yeah, you could. Can you zoom in on those?
Um,
or does it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I tried that, and it just kept going over.
Then you have to move the document back at the bar down below.
Oh.
Right thing, you can drag it.
Someday I'll get the hang of this. It appears to want to jump
Well,
around.
I can read through these.
Yeah, why don't you just read through it?
This is a flyer that we would have and provide to everybody at the meeting, and it'll be posted on the
jumping.
website with some frequently asked questions that we typically get as part of this type of effort, just so everybody can kind of read through them and give them some background on the project, so we're not answering a lot of these frequent questions over and over again. So the first one is, what is the project? The project is the replacement of the Red Top Road Bridge, very close to the intersection of Nye Road and Red Top Road. It carries Red Top Road over a tributary to Nye Creek. The existing bridge is deficient and needs replaced. The second question is, what is the need for the project? The answer goes into a detailed description as to why the bridge is deficient because of the deterioration over time, essentially. And it serves 1,200 vehicles a day, and it needs to be replaced to carry all legal loads on the roadway. So what is the purpose of the project? It's kind of a summary of the first two. Is to provide a sustainable, safe, and efficient crossing for the Red Top Road Bridge over the tributary to Nye Road. That'll address the project needs and provide unrestricted access to illegal vehicles. And then who is sponsoring the project? So this is the owner of the project, and that is Lower Paxton Township. And what is the funding for the project? The project funding is split 80% federal funds, 15% state funds, and 5% local township funds. And the source of that funding's through the local MPO, Tri-County, and their Harrisburg area transportation program. So what will the project cost? Project is currently estimated at $1,125,000. That's construction costs. Can the design presented at this meeting change? The answer is the project is currently moving into final design. The plan displays at this meeting show the proposed bridge and roadway alignment of the design as they will be constructed. If there is comments that would contribute towards a design change or some sort of changes, we will take that into consideration. That is the purpose of this meeting. When will the project be built? Right now we're scheduled for the summer of 2021 for construction, and we have a slide that will address the schedule as well. How many properties will be impacted? Right now we have estimated 3 properties, and it'll be a mix of easements and right-of-ways, very small right-of-ways, probably more so easements, temporary construction easements over the properties adjacent to the bridge. Will the property affect any historic resources? No, it won't. Will the project affect any other resources? No, it won't. How will the traffic be maintained during construction? Vehicular traffic will be a detour. The road will obviously have to be closed for construction. The detour, which we have a map in the slides, will utilize Copperstone Road to Union Deposit Road and then back to Nye Road and then returning to Red Top Road. The overall detour length is 2.7 miles. Pedestrian traffic, we're addressing it. There's no pedestrian traffic at the moment, so we're not having a pedestrian detour, obviously. And then, is this the only opportunity I get to voice my opinion? No, this is typically a venue where you can come and voice your opinion, but we will have that ability provided to all the residents via email, or they could write in or contact the township or myself to voice their opinion. And then I provide my contact information at the bottom of the frequently asked questions sheet. Do we have any questions on the frequently asked questions?
Ryan, I just had a question, and maybe you know this because I know HRG was involved, or Brad. When is the Nye Road Devonshire Heights project to be completed?
We are coordinating that with Penndot. do you know? I think there's going to be some overlap.
Okay, because I know it was
Yeah.
supposed to be like an 18-month project, and I
Yeah.
think they're running a little bit behind.
I believe there is going to be some overlap. Our detour does not conflict with their detour. However, I'm sure there's traffic using Red Top Road in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay,
and I don't believe Red Top Road is part of their detour.
no, they're
So-
coming out through Hunter's Run.
Yep,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
yep.
You said that the project will begin summer of 2021.
That's the schedule. Yep.
Yeah,
What is the estimate time to do the project, and when is estimated time for completion?
We're anticipating to get it completed by the fall, early winter of '21. So the project should be relatively short in duration.
Okay,
'cause
so 3 to 4 months.
It's a pretty small
that would-
project,
okay,
yeah.
We would have,
Yep.
the people would have to use the detour, okay.
Yes, that's
I
correct.
didn't hear that, I heard the start, but I didn't hear the.
Yep. Yeah, and the detour itself, it may not be the complete 4 months. It might be a little
Right, I
less.
understand, but at
Yeah.
least an estimate,
Yep.
so at least publicly, our constituents are aware of the approximate amount of
Yep.
time.
Very good question.
Thank you.
and the approximate completion date for the Nye Road project is May 2021. So, at this
Okay, is
point.
that even with them running behind?
That was the most updated project report.
Oh, okay, good,
Mhm.
okay, then
Yeah,
it
so
should work out.
we will most likely be starting after they're
Okay,
complete.
good.
So that's a good thing. So the first exhibit is the overall exhibit showing the improvements. As you can see in the color-coded exhibit, the proposed roadway and shoulders are shown. This is not the existing. The existing, as you may recall, has a pretty tight turn coming out onto Nye Road. We are going to widen that slightly to improve that turning radius, move the guide rail back. The overall structure is not going to widen significantly, but it will some, and we'll have a shoulder there. The Red Top Road itself, within the project limits, will get a shoulder that it does not have right now, but that'll be a pretty short stretch of Red Top Road because we'll be tying back into existing and limiting that work to what is needed to build the bridge.
Just a quick question. Was there any consideration for those that were traveling on Nyes to make a left on Red Top for line of sight? Because when you make that left turn, you kind of like hold your breath and hope that nobody's speeding.
On Nye Road.
On Nye Road.
That was out of the scope of this project to make any improvements on Nye Road. So we did not look at that scenario.
I'm going to guess I know the answer, and the answer I'm going to guess is yes. The 3 parties involved are all aware of this project that are identified there that will have impact on their property.
We have not made any formal
Okay,
contact.
so this may be for them the first time
Yes.
that they're seeing and hearing that their
Yep.
property, okay, that there is an impact on their
Yeah.
property. Okay, thank you.
And I think as part of our public outreach or our continuation of this public outreach would be to make sure that they're aware of the ability to make comment.
Okay, thank you.
At the very least, those people, we should make sure are aware that they can make comment.
Yes, it will have an impact on their property, so it would be
Yeah.
good that we notify them.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah, they may know because we did supply notice of intent to enter letters to all affected properties. So they received a letter that we would be on their property surveying, conducting engineering. So they may be aware, but they probably have not seen what's happening or the proposed
Or how much of their
improvements.
property is,
Exactly.
okay, is under consideration.
Yep. All right, we can move to the next slide. This is the conceptual detour plan that I described earlier. You can see the project location flagged right at the intersection of Nye Road and Red Top Road, and then the highlighted detour route using Copperstone Road to to Union Deposit Road, back to Nyes Road, and then Red Top. We evaluated a few different alternatives, and we felt that this was the most feasible and appropriate, given the alternatives that we looked at. And it's also the shortest. We can move on to the next slide. So this is part of our environmental clearance. We assess the environmental resources within the project limits, and if we will affect them, if we do affect them, is there any mitigation that's required? This is part of our NEPA clearance, using the federal money for the project. We do have two resources. This is a host of 1 through 20 potential resources that we evaluate. We do have 2 resources present. Other surface waters, we have a small tributary coming down over Red Top Road to the tributary to Nyes Run, and then we also obviously are crossing the tributary to Nyes Run. And then we have a floodplain. We do not have any permanent impacts to either of these resources, and therefore no mitigation is required. We will be doing H&H studies, evaluations, and we have already evaluated such that the proposed structure will not impact the floodplain. This is the project schedule. It's a little difficult to read, but you can see beginning in February of 2019 with preliminary engineering as we progress to our current status, which is not May anymore, but June. Moving through, we are getting ready to move into final design, which is the last phase of design, before we move into construction in the summer of 2021. This illustrates a typical section of the bridge. The typical section is a cross section. It's like if you essentially cut the bridge and looked at it from the end. The existing bridge section is on top. It's an existing single span structure with a 27.5-foot out-to-out measurement with the usable roadway surface at 23 foot 7 inches. The proposed structure will be a box culvert, and it will consist of a 31-foot out-to-out. We'll have 12-foot lanes, which is a total of 24 feet, and then we'll have an additional 2-foot shoulder on either side. So you can see that we will be widening the structure by approximately 4 feet plus a little bit. And then where we will flare the structure a bit as we get closer to Nyes Road to help accommodate that turning radii, and we'll be a little wider at that point, but this is the bulk of the structure is this section. Looks like we have a duplicate side.
Mm-hmm.
We can keep going.
And that would be the last one,
Oh, is that the last one? Okay.
at least on this file.
I think that is it.
Let's see, is there,
I think that's it. I think that's all the exhibits that we have. This is a status update that's a bit out of date. I'll be providing a more revised status.
Right. This is the attachment that we do have.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's all I have. I'd be glad to answer any questions, and then certainly we'll follow up with some outreach and see if we can solicit any feedback from the public.
Any questions?
Yeah, Ryan, I know
Yeah.
you said that the 3 properties that you did send them a letter. I'm just a little concerned that you're this far along, and did the letter say that the bridge was going to be replaced, or did you just said that they were going to be there surveying on their property?
It did not have details into what was going to be done, because at the time we don't know. It did say that we'd be on their property conducting engineering and environmental evaluations for this project specifically. We cannot actually, the project, part of the process is the preliminary engineering is it does get the design pretty far along. And then the environmental clearance has to happen before we can actually approach and talk to any property owners. And that process is in place because technically our design's not set until our environmental clearance is received. So that's like kind of the final step in the design process.
So once that clearance comes, then you'll
Yes.
be in touch?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that when is that? Is that in the progress now, or are you about to initiate that?
This is
In the environmental clearance, I'm talking, speaking of.
this is part of the environmental clearance process, and we are working on the scoping or the document.
So you're in the process
You're
of
in the-
doing that
Yes.
now?
Yep.
When do you anticipate that piece will be completed?
We anticipate that to be completed, is this June? I would say by the end of July.
End of July, okay.
Yeah, we'll have that completed. We do have a right-of-way plan prepared that's going through the review process, and once we have environmental clearance, then we will be approaching property owners.
Okay.
Obviously working.
Okay, because if they're watching the meeting tonight, they're going to go, wow, we're getting a bridge and didn't know about it.
Yep.
So, okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Anybody else?
I have one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
When do we expect to hear back from you again for the next update report, if you will?
I'll be sending Brad monthly updates, similar to what you see here.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to come back.
Okay, so that would be then, as you send reports to
Yeah.
him, then it's our discretion if we want to have you in and
Yeah.
do this again.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, this is a formal process as part of the environmental clearance, but I'm glad to come and talk to you anytime about
Right.
it.
but by having you here, it does help not only us see and hear, but also our community to see and hear, and especially the three stakeholders involved.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay, with that, we now need to move to a discussion on the topic of trick or treat. And we have our Public Safety Director, Adam Koshiba, with us this evening. By way of background, this became a somewhat controversial subject last year with those who urged us to hold trick or treat on Halloween, October 31st, as opposed to what has been traditionally having it on, the fourth Thursday of October. So this year, rather than have these discussions in October, we would like to resolve, hopefully, the issue in June so everyone knows where we're going. So, Director, we'll start off with your thoughts.
Well, good evening, everyone. Fortunately or unfortunately, you're ahead of the ball game on this discussion. I did have a discussion with the president of the County Chiefs Association today, and it was his intention to have this on July's meeting agenda. In speaking with him, basically after last year's folks jumping ship and kind of doing the trick-or-treat on Halloween, I believe it is going to be the county chief's recommendation that the individual municipalities choose when they're going to have trick-or-treat from this point moving forward. I can't say that for sure at this point, but that seems to be the direction that they're going. So I would refer back to the board on your wishes on what you would like to do with the trick-or-treat this year. I know there was a lot of media attention last year to having it actually on Halloween. Again, the only concern I have on this date in particular is Halloween falls on a Saturday this year.
Right.
It's going to be an increased traffic problem, so we'll have to add more officers to make sure that the roadways are safe and do everything we can to kind of minimize the impact of the pedestrian traffic on the various roadways in the township. So that's my only concern. We can adjust for that now that we know well ahead of time that's possible. So,
Adam, I guess it's worth explaining why it was even in the beginning that the county police chiefs tried to coordinate. Can you remind us of why that was?
it was a multifaceted approach with concerns about vehicle traffic in general, and by having it on the Thursday before, obviously that minimized the traffic. It was a school night, so it minimized the ability for the children to be up late.
But why did they want everyone to try to speak in one voice?
They wanted that. My understanding is that the reason for that was so that all the communities had the same night, so you could kind of gauge how many children you would have in your communities. The other issue that you run when we have sporadic dates for the trick or treat is if you have it on different, if your date here is the 31st. And someone else has it on the 28th, for instance, you're going to have those individuals from that community moving in here on the 31st to do trick-or-treating here as well. So that was kind of the group consensus to keep everything on the same day to kind of limit the number of people traveling from community to community and dealing with the overabundance of traffic and foot traffic associated with the trick-or-treating.
I just remember, Director, last year your concern was the traffic and having to call extra men in. And we are watching our budget because of the COVID. So, you're talking overtime there. And I know I did check the schedule. Friday night there is a football game. And then Saturday, my own opinion, families do things together. They go out to eat. They're shopping all day. So I'm in favor of keeping it at the Thursday, and hopefully that's what will happen, and all the other municipalities would do. I just remember you standing there last year saying, this is not feasible, we should not do this because of calling the men in and because of all the extra traffic. And now if everybody picks their own date, you are right. You might have gotten 50 trick-or-treaters, but you might get 100 now because they're coming from other communities.
That's correct. All depends on what part of the community you live in and where those folks are coming from.
Yeah.
Of course, when you run out, you run out.
Well, I'm also thinking this year, I guess maybe there might even be a question as to whether trick-or-treating can occur at all, depending on where we are. Hopefully, by the end of October, the whole coronavirus thing is behind us and not resurgent. There might be a reluctance this year on behalf of parents to have children out doing this. So this could be maybe a low turnout trick-or-treat year, if at all. I would like to just read into the record, we had one public comment that came in via email, and the public comment came from Forrest Healy. And Forrest Healy's comment was, I would like to see Halloween trick-or-treat on actual Halloween. There have been people upset with planning their holidays when the date keeps changing. What's the point of having Halloween on the calendar if we keep moving it? This township is safe enough that it can be whatever day October 31st lands on, just like the good old days. So that's Forrest's opinion, and he wanted that to be passed along to the board.
And I know there are other communities that do trunk or treat, where if you wanted to participate, you could go, like, say, to the 3 fire company parking lots or like the Friendship Center. And if you wanted to participate, you could open your trunk and children could come there too. So, because of the virus, that might be another thing to think about also.
I think a lot of churches do that as well for safety reasons. So, Mike, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, I guess since it's been brought up, what's the ballpark figure for the extra police cost?
I haven't even estimated that to tell you. I'd have to look at last year's overall numbers as far as the officers working, and I can do my best to lower that figure if I'm well within the planning schedule. So,
well, I mean,
because
because Supervisor Lindsay brought up a good point. If we are trying to pinch pennies to make up for the lost revenue this year, but if it's a little bit, then that means something. If it's a lot, then that means something. So if we had a ballpark figure, it would just help us try to balance.
What I'm always fearful of when I adjust schedules is it seems like every time we do, and our officers do a great job of volunteering and not making issues out of adjusting their schedules, but when we adjust schedules, it's inevitable that something else happens, and we end up having to pay overtime for other related issues because of the schedule change. So it's kind of a shell game. And
I
it's just a
totally
guess.
get that. You can give us a range, give us a wide range, but just if this is part of the public discussion, the public should know just what range we're talking about, just so it can be part of how we pick a day.
I would say for the 2-hour time period, and we'd have to have probably an additional 8 to 10 officers. If we put that number at 10, you're probably looking in the neighborhood of maybe $5,000 of overtime, if we have to utilize overtime.
Not bad. Okay.
Director, since we broke ranks last year, can you think of any or refer to any issues that were created that you had to deal with that was out of the ordinary?
No, last year was if you recall, there was a major weather event, and that scared everyone. So it kind of skewed our numbers and what was actually happening by moving it to that date. So I think we saw a lot less folks out because of the weather event.
We should keep in mind that last year, the reason why we moved from the fourth Thursday to the actual date of Halloween was that there was a petition started by residents, of which hundreds of people petitioned us, and folks actually showed up asking to have the date moved to actual Halloween. And that's why we made a relatively last-minute decision to do so, because public sentiment was heavily in favor of having it on the actual date of Halloween. So that being the gauge of public sentiment, my personal opinion is, frankly, I've never really understood, even though it's been explained to me for 20 years, why we don't just have trick-or-treat on Halloween. A lot of people just don't get it. And I think it causes a lot of confusion to have it the fourth Thursday, especially last year we had 5 Thursdays, and that really, I think, is what triggered a lot of the comments. But, personally, I think you have the holiday on the holiday.
Adam, I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
I know that also, as Ms. Lindsay indicated, that there is a football game on Friday night. I know Halloween is Saturday night. My question, and you alluded to this, but I want to make certain, is Saturday the worst night of the week, for example, and therefore would you have adequate coverage if we go with actual Halloween this year because of Saturday?
Our schedule would definitely accommodate it. We would make sure that we would be staffed accordingly for our normal shift, and then based on what we would assess the crowd to be, we'd schedule individuals, either readjust their schedules or pay them overtime to make sure that happens.
Okay.
So normally on the weekends, we have minimums that are required to keep, and we will definitely not go below the minimums on a weekend night.
All right, so then I'll put you on the spot. Do you have a recommendation? Or are you going to simply yield to the supervisors?
I will yield to the Board of Supervisors.
That's what I thought. That was a safe response, Adam.
You're always very diplomatic. I'm impressed.
I try, sir.
You tried last year.
You tried last year, too.
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions for the director? Okay.
If we go with Saturday, you can make it work. Yes.
We'll be prepared if that's what
All
you
right.
choose.
But
Thank you.
it could be an extra 5,000.
Could be, yes.
Could be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Board
you,
members,
Adam.
Any additional questions or comments before we take a vote? I'm assuming we're going to take a vote.
Discussion.
What?
We're voting?
No, we're having discussion.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're going to vote, yes.
We're going to vote tonight.
We're going to vote tonight, yeah.
The first time we talk about it in public, we're going to bring it up and vote.
I was just assuming we'd take a vote. If you
Okay.
want to delay
Well,
it another week, that's
discussion.
okay.
It said discussion.
Do we want to wait and see? I know you said that you think that they might go with each municipality, and you're meeting in July, Director? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Do we want to wait till July just to see what the police, the chiefs what they're going to say, what they're going to recommend? I mean, it's only a couple of weeks. When do they meet, Director?
I think it's
Okay, so you might talk in 4 weeks.
You can.
I don't mind even waiting 1 week, in as much as our community see and hear us having the discussion tonight. If they want to submit any additional comments, as Mr. Henry's already received one, it would give our community the opportunity 1 week to respond and give us any additional input that they may want to.
And we're way
That's,
ahead of
that
the
would be
game.
my only reason. Otherwise, I don't have.
Wait. I just look at an agenda item and say we've had this discussion over and over and over and over and over and over again, and it's generally my effort to try to bring things to a decision point rather than to continue to drag it out. However, if you wish to wait another week, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, let's not bring it up and vote.
I don't believe we need to wait another 4 weeks. We know what the chiefs of police said before, and we went our own direction, with all due respect to them.
Yeah, I think just listening to the director that they're either, and I know you can't speak for them, that traditionally they're going to want it on the Thursday, and if anything, they're going to say each municipality do what you want. So either one of those won't really change what we would need to decide here. So I don't know that we got to wait till mid-July.
Yeah. If you want to wait till next week, that's fine by me. I have no problem.
If the police have said that they're pretty much leaning toward letting each municipality do its own thing, then let's give our community a week's opportunity to respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with that,
But I
ends
don't-
the
but I-
discussion, and we'll put it on the agenda for a vote next.
But I do agree, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to wait till July.
No, I think this is one of these things where we go around and around and around.
Yeah, we need to make the decision. It needs to be
Yeah.
published so everyone knows.
I mean, it's an important decision, but it's not in the realm of everything we have to do the most important. Although to a lot of people it is. So, okay, with that, we will hold that then, Mr. Manager, for a vote next week. And therefore, we need to move to a presentation and discussion on the 2020 adjusted budget. Mr. Godshaw.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Where do we have? Coronavirus adjusted, oh boy. It would appear that we have, let's see, we have to go back to your government. And agenda. Got to sign in again, huh?
Yeah, I got kicked out.
Did it to me.
Oh, there it is.
And Norm, yeah.
June 9th.
Nope, I'll have to go, I'll have to.
You gotta go up in the right corner and sign in again.
I think you have to. I think you can go to home
I got kicked out.
homepage.
Did everybody get kicked out?
Down.
Oh, did you get kicked out also?
Yeah.
So did I.
I think if you
Uh-oh.
go to homepage, it'll just come back up.
All right.
No, I'm good.
You good?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm in now.
It doesn't want to come up. There we go. There we go. Now, let's see if we can get one more step here and get this up on the screen. There we
There we
go.
go.
All right.
I take that back, Brad.
Oh, no.
It went away again.
We pause while we correct technical
Oh,
difficulties.
last time I did this, I just did this. And hit this. And hit this. Came right back up. Didn't have to put a password in. See?
There you go. And now, if you,
Well, what I did was,
that's,
yeah, I didn't have to do the password and then all that.
yeah, it automatically saved. That's
Yeah.
good, okay.
Okay. Is everybody back into the system and have their?
I am in, yes, thank
Okay,
you.
Robin, are you back into it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Everybody's on, literally on the same page. So,
Okay. Well, board members, thank you. Before you this evening in your packets, on the agenda, we do have staff and my recommendation for the adjusted budget for 2020 as everyone now probably in the United States is aware, we are going to be seeing a significant decrease in local government revenues, not just local government, but government period revenues. And as a result of that, many governments across the nation are taking appropriate preliminary steps to address those concerns moving forward. We are lucky here in Lower Paxton Township as a primary, this region particularly has been stable year in, year out as a result of being the home of the capital. We hold a number of government employees at the state level. So historically, our revenues have been rather stable. Unfortunately, this year, we are going to see a significant decline in revenues. It is forecasted through the United States that local governments are going to be hit with an approximately 10 to 15% reduction in earned income tax. And that is really the biggest decrease in revenues that a government will see on the revenue side is through earned income. We are seeing that be the case. As of the most recent billing, the real estate taxes for the township are at about 90% collected of the budgeted figure. So we're doing well on the real estate tax side. As expected, we really didn't expect much of a decline on that. Those that are outstanding yet are the bigger commercial properties that had sources of revenues decline as a result of the suspension of business, obviously. But other than that, we've not seen a market decline in real estate. So what we've done here in Lower Paxton to try to mitigate the potential loss of revenue was designate a reduction in earned income tax revenues to the tune of 12.5%. That is obviously the midpoint between 10 and 15%. So we thought that in our assessment of where this thing is heading, we had assumed that would be a very good conservative number to place the reduction of earned income tax revenue at. So that takes us to a reduction of $980,000 to the general fund budget that we had to make up the gap for. And so I worked with each one of the department heads. We sat down for a number of weeks to assess our budgets and determine what cuts needed to be made in order to close that $980,000 gap. And I have to say that, I give much credit and much appreciation to each one of the department heads for sitting down seriously, looking at their budgets, and making the difficult decision on which line items to cut. As we know, our township already does a very phenomenal job at keeping the line items where they need to be. So cutting in some cases literally means cutting certain programs or purchases that we were designed to move forward with. So I just wanted to put that out there and thank the department heads for making these decisions as well. And just to give a bit of background as well, as we go through this budget here, you'll notice highlighted line items, which obviously reflect the line items that are proposed to be cut in this amendment. And so what I was thinking about doing was just going down and identifying those line items that may be of most notable things that may derive some questions on. Because some of the line items were merely adjustments based on, so training. Obviously, our staff is not being able to take advantage of certain trainings, so as a result, obviously, line items for training will be cut. So I don't know that we have to go into great detail about that, but I will highlight some line items that I think may be questionable or may deserve a bit more explanation. The first line item that I should note is computer network expenses. That is line item 4001-40701, computer network expenses, within the admin budget. This, you'll see a decrease in the amount of, where is it?
46,000.
46,650.
46,650. I'm just trying to. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to get that.
You can look at the
Item
Loman's got it up.
407.
Right. I just had notes that on my document that I needed to pull up here real quick. Sorry about that.
It's a big savings.
Your computer shut off, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because of the reduction.
We made the cut too soon.
Yeah, that's because of the reduction.
Yeah. Yes. So yes, in this line item, this reduction comes as a result of a reduction to a fishing campaign that was budgeted to take place. There was an on-site training for our financial software that was going to take place, and also an annual server maintenance payment that was going to take place. And so those items we felt that would be best to be cut from this particular line item result in the figure of 46,650 being cut from that line item. As you'll note, that line item has been reduced quite a bit already, but we are pretty much in line with the actual spend being around that amount. So we're doing well, and we'll just cut that amount moving forward. And just before I get too far ahead, I should also note that it was made clear to the department heads that the board would be acting on this at some point, and that from the time we were putting this draft budget together until the time that we are aware truly of what our revenue projections will be through this thing, that they must keep themselves to this amended budget. So if we get to a point come, say, July, August, where we start to see revenues, where they were last year, and we haven't seen a market decrease in earned income, I would come to the board again to, suggest re-amending the budget again to take the cuts away potentially, if that is the case, if we are seeing revenues continue to be strong. But as I mentioned, all indications are that we will see a market decline in those revenues, so we should keep those cuts in place until that time.
Brad, you said 10 to 15% national reduction?
That's
what's expected?
That's the analysis, right?
Where does this percentage fall in with the proposed?
So as an overall number,
Percentage.
As an overall, we are reducing the earned income revenue projection by 12.5%. So, and each one of these cuts, as I mentioned, are to try to get us to that. Yeah.
So in July and August, when we see the numbers, it could go either way. We might see an uptick in revenues that would allow us to restore some of the cuts. It could also be more than 12.5%. So we're going to keep a very close eye on that.
Yes, we will. It's already an unfortunate, I think, situation, and the unemployment data for Lower Paxton Township already suggests that there will most likely be a decline in those revenues. The unemployment rate for March for Lower Paxton Township was about 4%. 4% unemployment in Lower Paxton Township in March. The April data just came out and shows a 13% unemployment rate for Lower Paxton Township. And the data on the Bureau of Labor and Statistics go back to 1990. And during that whole range of data, that is the highest recorded unemployment rate in the township. The next lowest rate was about 6%, and that was during the last great financial crisis that we've had. So we're talking double, more than double, the highest recorded unemployment rate in the township recorded by the Bureau. So it will be a significant reduction in these revenues if that number reflects on the earned income. And we're not sure if that's going to be the case, but we're expecting that it will be the case.
Well, we'll want to see how quick the bounce back is. We saw a real national bounce back with May's numbers, and I don't recall having seen yet. I know the state had laid like 7,000 employees off or something like that when they will be recalled. I think that might have a big impact on us given the number of state employees in our township. So, and hopefully with things reopening, hopefully we go into the green in another week or so. So if we see a nice bounce back here within the next month or so, hopefully.
Yeah, I think once the businesses are able, we go green and the businesses are able to open up, more of the businesses, I think things should bounce back. Because a lot of stuff is still closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get all the way back.
No,
because
but
unfortunately,
I think it'll help a little bit.
It'll help.
It
should help a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So in other words, you're proposing this budget that has put these cuts into place, but this is not a budget that's not going to be looked at again until the end of the year. We're going to, in about another month or two, or monthly, keep an eye on the numbers.
Correct. So my intent with this was present it to the board tonight, bring it back to the board next week to have you vote to adopt it, the amendment, and then staff will keep an eye on revenues heading into July, August, and if we aren't seeing the reduction that we're expecting, I'll bring it back before the board to have a discussion about whether or not we want to, get rid of the amendment and revert back to the originally adopted budget, which would allow the department heads to go back to normal spending. But if we are seeing those reductions actually hit us, I would suggest we keep that amended budget in place for the remainder of the year.
And Brad, were you planning on going through a few more? And
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yep. I wanted to get that detour, but yes. The next item of note is line item 01 4100 410 07 Police Department line items for civilians. We see here a reduction in the amount of $38,876. This is through the holding of an open but vacant secretarial position within the department. So we'll just hold that vacant till the end of the year, and we'll see a reduction in that amount. Next one is in the police department, 4100 410 34 vehicle purchases. And that we see a reduction in the amount of $74,000. This is savings through not purchasing 3 vehicles for the department. The director will rotate the vehicles within the fleet to mitigate any mechanical degradation that may take place, just to hold us over until next year. These are typical fleet purchases that we make each year, and the entire fleet is on a schedule to replace, obviously, year after year. So that does put a monkey wrench into next year's scheduled swap out, but the director has identified that as potential savings. Next line item, 4160 46202, which is in the code enforcement department.
What's the number again?
4160 462 02.
Codes inspector,
Yes, codes inspector.
20,000.
Yep, we're seeing a reduction there of $20,000. This budgeted amount was for the hiring of an intern. We'll forego that this year. That's $20,000. Next line item is 4,300 430.05 within the Public Works Department for skilled full-time labor. we see a reduction of $52,000. If you recall, the board had budgeted for the hiring of 2 laborer positions. They have not yet been hired, just through the process. So that amount is naturally reflective of half the year's worth of salary for those 2 positions. That was an easy cut for the department. But we identified that. Next line item, 4501, 45405, within the Parks Department. 4501, 45405, Parks escrow expense. See a reduction of $100,000. This line item reflects park projects that take place through the funding from the funding of developers for fee in lieu of monies that we hold this account for. And that line item this year was to do some crack sealing and court refurbishment in Cole Park, Forest Hills Park, and a number of other minor repairs throughout various parks. And we can identify that as a savings through not doing those refurbishments this year. We got some estimates in from HRG anyway after the fact, after the budget was done, indicating a cost to the project of greatly in excess of the $100,000 anyway, so it would have been infeasible to do them this year anyway. So we have identified $100,000 there in savings. The remainder of the $50,000 that you do see remaining is for the bocce ball court project, so that is reflected in that only. So next line item is 4,900. It's all the way down at the bottom of the general fund. 4,900, 49201. That's the line item for interfund transfers. This $60,000 decrease was scheduled to go towards the general improvement fund. 30,000 of which was budgeted for the Arley Colonial Road Adaptive Signal grant project. We have a grant through Penndot to upgrade those signals to the adaptive system that we see elsewhere in the township, but it is a multi-year project, so we can just simply push that out 1 year. So you'll see a return of $30,000 in next year's budget to reflect that, because we do have the grant monies already in hand, and we have to expend those funds within 3 years. So we are on track, but we can delay that by 1 year. The other $30,000 comes from a reduction in the budgeted project for the zoning and land development ordinance rewrite. That was slated to be $30,000. At this point, we have identified that as being a good cut to make, and we can address that if the board wishes next year. But so they are the main kind of points that I wanted to make. As I mentioned before, there are a litany, as you can see in reviewing this, there are a litany of cuts throughout the budget that are highlighted. We're talking a couple $1,000s here and there, training, office expenses, et cetera, but all that totaling to calculate $980,000 in savings. So you can continue to digest that. I'm happy to answer any questions or anything on particular line items or generally speaking. And like I'd mentioned, I had anticipated bringing the budget back before the board next week to get the board to act on it. So,
Brad, can I ask you, the park escrow expense, why are we keeping the $50,000 for the bocce courts? That's a lot of money.
The project is already underway. We started that beginning of the year.
Okay.
So it's almost actually complete. There's some storm work to be done, but that's
Okay.
already pretty much complete.
All right.
Oh, one other point I failed to mention. This morning we had the pricing call for the 2020 bond issuance.
Yes.
Went very well. In speaking to Mr. Verdelli, who's been in the industry doing this work for, he said, 28 years, it's the first time in his history doing this that he has seen a 30-year transaction take place, giving a rating of 1.98%. It's a very low, very competitive rate. They, in their analysis, RBC attributes that to, in their view, an overbought stock market, people looking to divert their holdings into Treasury market, and we actually saw on this particular call that RBC placed for Lower Paxton Township, we saw $150 million worth of orders on a $34 million bond issuance.
Wow.
So very, very impressive reaction to our bond request. And so that is going to actually reflect in a reduction in this year's debt service of about $45,000. That's not all general fund, but a majority of it is general fund.
That's split.
Is that split? But a majority
That's
is
not
general
all
fund.
here.
Right. So we will see further savings through that as well. So just to make that point as well. But
And we were
some good
already looking at over $300,000 savings for 2021.
correct. Throughout.
Not all in the general
Correct,
fund, but
correct.
spread across, what, 3 or 4 different categories
Yeah, we were expecting about $160,000 for the general fund
for the general fund.
for next year.
The other was with the municipal sewer authority.
The authority and the Friendship Center, correct?
And
So
the Friendship
Brad, when
Center.
we see this next week, will that saving be reflected here, or are you just going to let that one ride?
I was just going to let that ride.
Okay,
but
that's
I
fine. I
certainly
just wanted to know what we're going to do. Okay.
sure, sure.
Any savings that we can bring about right now is very
It's
important.
very important,
The importance is
exactly.
amplified. So wow, that's quite an interest rate.
1.98%. Yeah,
Good. Very
Yep.
good. So that closed the deal?
that closed the deal. Yep,
Okay.
we signed and it's official.
Very good. Congratulations to all.
Yes.
That's great.
Brad, you're going to bring this back to us for adoption next week.
Correct.
We had, I heard your discussion. At what point in time will you return with an update and/or recommendation to continue what we're doing or to modify again? Are you going to wait till August? Are you going to wait till September?
We'll
Or
see.
before? I don't.
Yeah, well, it'll probably
Or on an
be
as-needed
August.
basis.
Yeah, it most likely will be August, if not slightly later. The way the earned income tax collections work is quarterly, and the collection is always retroactive. So
Okay.
it puts us behind a little bit. But yeah, probably August.
Right, 'cause then at that point, EIT, you're going to start to see some trends of
Right.
what's going on, whether there's a correlation there between that and the unemployment.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, Brad, please extend to all of our department directors our appreciation for, as you mentioned, the budget didn't have any fat to begin with. So we're now actually cutting bone here. And our congratulations to our department directors for making these tough decisions, and hopefully we don't have to cut any further. That hopefully the revenues will start to come back here as we look over the next couple of months. So that will then go to next month, or next week, excuse me, for action. That will then take us to item 8. We need to take action on resolution 2020-16. We need to approve a planning module for the Shane and Diane Devan preliminary and final subdivision plan. Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, resolution 20-16.
Did it again.
This happened to me again,
It's-
too.
I'm trying to find the sign in.
You may have to sign in again.
Yes.
click go to homepage, you pass it. That blue line right there, the link over there, go to the home, to your left, to your left.
I have to go to the left?
Yeah, there you
Oh.
go, there you go. Now you can sign it.
Oh, okay. You're the only person who's made me go to the left here, Chris. And welcome back to your government. Agenda. We really have to find a way to get this worked out. Okay, and now let's see if we can find the planning module.
There
Oh,
it is.
well,
You have the resolution.
it's a resolution, okay.
Right.
Okay, sorry about that.
That was a long way to get to
Yeah.
that. That's,
This is rather
Not very
straightforward.
exciting.
yeah,
because
it's
we-
also rather straightforward.
Because we approved the plan last week,
Yeah,
actually.
right.
Yeah, so they need the planning module.
Correct.
Without discussion, Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2020-16, which approves the planning module for Shane and Diane Devan, as recommended by staff.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I will give everybody the opportunity if you have any discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that then takes us to improvement guarantees,
And I can't open it.
and
Got it.
they're up on the screen. There are 4 of them. They also appear to be relatively routine.
Right, that's always straightforward. I didn't see anything unless
Mr.
you have
Chrisman?
something.
Mr. Chrisman,
Yeah.
could you do them individually, please?
Right, I assume that
Oh,
we would do Painted Sky Crossing, Creek Crossing, and Chavoni separate.
we
I
have
mean,
another
we can do
shade
those
book.
together,
Okay.
and I'll move that we approve those 3.
Okay, a motion to approve the 3 improvement guarantees delineated by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We also have the Shadebrook Phase 1 extension letter of credit.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of that one as is.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Abstain for personal reasons.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Aye, whatever. All right, so that is approved on a 4 vote yes and 1 abstention. And I believe that would conclude the agenda. Are there any additional announcements for members of the board?
Just a quick question for Brad, maybe. Do you have enough working knowledge to talk a little bit about this drive-in movie next week?
If you're going to ask me how big the screen size is,
Do you have
No.
an idea how the logistics are going to work? Or I mean, we're a week and a day away, and
yeah, what particular question? It will.
people, how are they going to hear it? For example,
Yeah, through the radio,
Through the car radio.
through the car radio.
Leanne, I had asked the question before the meeting. Do you know how big the screen's going to be? I don't. I hope it's not going to be the screen that we used at Heroes Grove.
Thank you.
The
Okay.
website that we were provided from the Parks and Rec Department is usatheaters.com, and it shows an image of what the screen looks like, but I do not know the dimensions.
Okay.
But it does show a picture of it if you want to pull up that site. That's
Okay.
also linked on our website in the calendar that promotes the event. It's listed on the Parks and Rec page on the website and on our homepage. You can see that, the post for the drive-in event, and click on that USA Theaters link to get
so
more
I assume
details.
somebody will be directing traffic as people come in. They'll tell them where they need to go.
Well, it's a partnership between Colonial Park Mall and Parks and Rec, so they'll have staff there as well as
Okay,
Township
good.
staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Leanne, the day and time of this
It's
is?
June 19th. The film will start at dusk, and the parking lot will open at 8 p.m. There will be more, I'm going to call them guidelines, that will be released from Parks and Rec in terms of if cars can park next to each other or if they'll prefer every other. Derry Township just did a similar event last week and worked out really well, so they're trying to mimic that same.
And this will be at the Colonial Park Mall?
Correct, and the film is Grease. Or the movie
Grease.
is Grease.
And Leanne, are people going to be allowed to get out of their cars, or
They can bring lawn chairs and sit near their vehicle, but it is, social distancing is encouraged for the event.
We do social media on this?
If you go on the Friendship Center Facebook page, it has its own event, and it's also shared on the Township page. It just went up yesterday, because that's
And
information
maybe
was
just
received.
throw it up there again as we get
Oh,
closer.
it'll be multiple times, but as
Yeah.
details, I want to
'Cause
wait
this
till I
is,
have.
it's not just, it's like new, the whole concept is new, so as long as they feel, all right, I think I know, and I guess no facilities per se, restroom facilities,
Porta
porta
potties,
johns.
yeah.
Yeah? Okay, because I knew that was a decision about whether or not,
Buffalo Wild Wings will be open. The Colonial Park Mall Theater will be selling popcorn, nachos, chips, all those things as well. Credit card only for the mall theater, and Buffalo Wild Wings is business as usual as far as how you pay.
fun. Thanks to everybody who's putting this together.
And it's in the Boscov's parking lot, right?
It is in the parking lot behind S&T Bank.
It's Boscov's parking lot. Okay. I wanted to make sure, because if people are up at Sears,
It's the parking lot behind
Yeah.
S&T
Well, but
Bank,
it-
Robin.
Did you not get
You will
that?
enter on Colonial Road. You will turn
Yeah.
left from Colonial Road
Right,
into
the
okay,
bank.
gotcha.
into the bank.
Into
Well,
the
because if
bank.
people are
Gotcha.
up at the other end, they might be
Right,
hanging
that's
out
also
up there,
in all
so
the-
it needs
yeah.
to be
All the information
clarified.
says that on our website and
Yeah.
on our Facebook page as well.
Awesome.
It's pretty clear on those.
Because I saw it advertised somewhere, so it said
Yes.
Boscov's parking lot. So.
The parking lot is near Boscov's.
The S&T Bank
Yes.
parking lot.
Whatever.
Great. Thank you for bringing that up. It's important that people know this is going to be a fun experiment to see how this works.
Norm's
Anything
going to
else?
be dancing?
Well, hey, you can.
Reserving my comments about that.
I don't believe we have a no dancing ordinance, so I guess if you want to dance, you can. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
No.
Okay, our next board meeting will be a business meeting 1 week from tonight, Tuesday, June 16th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in this room. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.